We've begun a new series looking at the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Last week we began exploring how we can become a people who, when under pressure or in difficult situations, that we might respond from a base instinct that reflects God's Spirit at work in our lives. The way we go about doing this is not by trying harder to be nice people, but to plant ourselves in Jesus, that by being close to him we might receive the Spirit as a gift and allow him to transform us from the inside out. Psalm 1 says that those who delight in the way of the Lord are like a tree planted by streams of water, who yield its fruit in season and whose leaf does not wither. We got a little bit technical last week, but it's important that as Christians that we understand this amazing true story which we are swept up into. Over the next 9 weeks, we're going to get practical, taking each of the fruit of the Spirit and looking at how God shapes us into a people who reflects these characteristics. But I would encourage you to go back to the first video, which is on our YouTube channel, and to spend some time wrestling through it, reading through the passages yourself, really getting to grips with the theory, understanding that this is an amazing story that you and I belong to. So today, love in a time of selfishness. Before we dive in, let's get thinking a little bit about love. Where do you see love demonstrated clearly at the moment? It might be a celebrity couple, a fictional relationship, or someone in your life that inspires you. Maybe it's a marriage you look up to, or the love of a parent for their child. And the second question is, what is it about this example of love that you love? Over to you. Hopefully we've been able to come up with some examples of love that inspires and encourages us. For me, I was blown away by the simple act of love and kindness from care worker Kia, who gave a 94-year-old called Ken a cushion of his late wife. And it's a beautiful story. Do check it out on social media. It's a great example of love because it focuses on love for another that is costly to the self. And it was costly for her because she went through all this effort to find the right photo, to go out, to get it printed onto a cushion, to present it to Ken. But also, as a care worker, she has opted in to staying in the care home to look after residents such as Ken. And this is a self-sacrificial act. It means that she's not seeing her own family in order to stay to look after those in her care. We've seen this kind of sacrificial love from our NHS staff during this COVID-19 time. These are beautiful examples of love that inspire us and help us to see a love that is truly putting the interests of others before ourselves. Unfortunately though, in our culture, love is not always focused on others, but on ourselves. Sam Harris, who is a famous atheist, he writes this. He says, "The well-being of others, especially those closest to us, is one of our primary and indeed most selfish interests." Sam, like other atheists, accepts this understanding of love because it fits neatly into their category of human survival. The purpose of love is so that we can survive. We love other people because it benefits us. In other words, the world is okay with love being a selfish thing. We love others because it's good for us. It's science. I don't want to be too critical because that story of Kia with the cushion is genuinely a beautiful thing. But why was it filmed? Why was the act of love not done when others were not around to watch? She has come out of this looking great. She's on BBC Breakfast. Maybe she's had a few more Instagram followers as a result. And that's okay. That's fine. She is great. And it was a beautiful thing and a loving act of kindness that she did. But it can also highlight this idea that love is not just something we do for others, but for our self-interest. And perhaps even that is the motivator, that it's for our fame, for our glory, it's for how we look. So love that benefits us. Think of love this way. The way we function in our society is a little bit like a tug-of-war contest. You know, the tug-of-wars with the ropes. Love is about meeting my own individual needs, so I pull others towards me so that I can win, so that people come to where I am, so that people give me what I need. And as we are fixated on this idea of love that is self-serving, the other side is doing this as well, which means there's tension with the rope, there's war. As we will see in a moment, God didn't design love to be like this, but instead for love to be an act of self-giving or self-sacrifice, a giving towards others, working towards not our own well-being, but the well-being of others. Love for the Christian is to put down the rope and to optionally walk into other people's spaces, ready to serve them and encourage them with the love of Christ. We will unpack this more in a moment, but I would love for us to move again into a time of discussion. 2 questions. Do you agree that our base instinct when it comes to love is to fulfill our own desires rather than to give to another? Why do you think this is the case? And the second one, how can we learn to love in a way that is self-sacrificial and self-giving? And what difference do you think this kind of selfless love would make? Over to you. I want you to know that there is good news. Although our base instinct is to love in order to fulfill our own needs, and although society tends to affirm that and to push us that way, it doesn't have to be the case. The reason for this is that Jesus doesn't offer us good advice, he offers us good news. In other words, he doesn't tell us how to try harder, try not to be so selfish. Instead, he makes it possible for us to experience a new way of life, a new way to love. So let's read together 1 John 4, 8-10. John writes, "Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world, that we might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins." Within this passage, there's 2 core realities. Firstly, we have this idea that God sent his Son so that we can live through him. We have the life of God made available to us. This means that he is for us and that he loves us. This is about his love for us. The second reality shows us just how he loves us. Jesus sacrificed himself as an atoning sacrifice. It's a costly, sacrificial, sin-bearing love. See, the word used for love here is agape. When we say God is love, what we're really saying is that God is agape. And agape is the kind of love that is self-giving. It's the kind of love that we see in Jesus on the cross. He has made this love possible by bringing it into the world himself, by laying down his own agenda, his own being for our sake. So how do we love this agape love, this selfless love in a time of selfishness? Again, this is not about trying harder. This is about being rooted in the God that has loved us with this love first. John writes, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." This is about our joy. This is about knowing that we are loved simply by abiding or remaining in who Jesus is. So the first step to becoming more loving in a time of selfishness is to know that you are loved. Know that you are loved by Jesus in the way that the Father loves Jesus. God's love nourishes us from the very core of our being. This is not also about how we feel towards God, but about knowing how he feels towards us. It's a love that is secure. It's promised to us. It is ours. It's been paid for on the cross. Your goal then is to believe that it's true. Do you know how loved you are by Jesus? The second thing I think we can do to learn to love in a time of selfishness is to begin to love in small ways. Mother Teresa famously said to do small things in great love. And David Foster Wallace has this great line. He says, the really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort, and being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in a myriad petty little unsexy ways every day. I love that. How can we find little ways this week, little unsexy ways, things that don't draw attention to ourselves, perhaps secret acts of kindness and love, that it's just the love of Christ flowing in and through us towards the other. In these two steps that I've just shared, we have a rhythm. Firstly, we come to him, we remain in Jesus, we know his love for us, and then we go to them. We allow God to turn us into a vessel for his love for those around us, that he would love the world in and through us. Pastor John Tyson of Church in the City, New York, again, who we've borrowed lots of this content from, has this great phrase that I want to finish on. He says, every time love walks into the room, it asks, how can I bless? How can I encourage? How can I serve? Can we become a people that are just so overflowing with the love that Christ has for us, that when we walk into a room, we're looking to do those small acts of love and kindness for those in and around us? So we're going to split into groups and pray that one another will know the love of Christ. And after that, I would love us to spend a bit of time also just thinking of a few small ways in which we can show love to people this week, even petty little unsexy ways.